I'm Steph Edusei, and I am, as I said, Chief Executive here at St Oswald Hospice. And for those of you that don't know St Oswald, I'll tell you a little bit about the organisation first, and then I'll tell you a little bit about me and my experiences. So St Oswald is about 35 years old, and the hospice itself is based in Gosforth in Newcastle. And we have we cater literally from babies right the way through children and young adults to adults. And we care for people who have life-limiting illnesses, and that includes end-of-life care. We also have a lymphedema service. So lymphedema is when you get collections of lymphatic fluid, particularly in arms and legs, and we have a service that deals with that. And that really came about because a lot of people who've had cancer treatment can get lymphedema, although actually people who haven't had cancer treatment can get it as well. So we've now got quite a big lymphedema treatment service and are actually specialists in lymphedema treatment in the northeast. So as I say, we have people from tiny babies right the way up to people in their 80s and 90s. And a lot of people think hospices are the place that you go to die. And yes, some people come to us and they stay with us as inpatients and they die here. But actually we do far more than that. So most of our children and young adults come to us for short breaks and respite. These are children and young adults who have life-limiting illnesses. So in the old days, they wouldn't have been expected to live beyond their teens. But actually the reason it's now a children and young adult service is they are living longer because of advances in medicine and care. So they come to us for breaks so that they get a really safe and happy environment for a break, but also their families and carers get breaks as well. We do deal with end of life for children and young adults as well, but actually that's less often because quite often children will either die at home, which we support them to do, or they'll die in hospital. And then adults, if you have a life-limiting illness, so that could be cancer, but it could be Parkinson's, it could be motor neuron disease, it could be a whole host of reasons why people have been given a terminal diagnosis. You can access our services and we will support you in whatever way is necessary, be that pain management, be it social care, be it complementary therapies, and we really help you and your family. And if you choose to die at home, we support you to die at home. So it's one of the things that really we want people to realise is that it's not a case of you come in and you never go out, because even the patients that die with us will quite often come and access our services and then they go home and then they come back again, and we have quite long relationships with people. So it's a really lovely place. And then on top of that, we have to raise funds because we're not funded really by the NHS. We receive some funding from them. So we have 25 shops and we have a huge fundraising operation as well. So it really is quite a diverse in terms of the things that we do organisation. But one of the things that everybody was saying when I joined and is really aware to me is that in terms of our staff and our volunteers, we are not particularly diverse. Even in age, actually, a lot of our volunteers tend to be older, but we are doing some stuff around that. And in terms of the people that access our service, we have a real mismatch between our local population and the demography of the people that use our services. And we're just starting some work to really try to understand why people from minoritised communities are not accessing our services. Is that they're not being told about them? Is it a choice? And how can we understand what's behind that so that we can actually make sure that we make our services right for the people that need them, rather than we have to fit in our little model of care to be able to access our services. So that's a piece of work that we're just starting, and I'm, you know, if people want to come back to me in a year's time, I'm more than happy to talk about where we get to with that. So a little bit about me. My background is the NHS. I started as a clock typist in the NHS, moved through being a medical secretary and on into management. And I spent 18.5 years working in the NHS. And then left and went into the voluntary community sector. So I ran Health Watch Newcastle and Health Watch Gateshead, which is like a health and social care watchdog for people who don't know what it is. And it's all about listening to service users and the public and getting health and social care providers to do the same thing and then to take action on what they hear. And a lot of work that we did was really reaching out to self and listening to communities, and trying to make sure that they had a voice and that they had a seat at the table and that we represented their views as best that we could. So in that term, representation was really important to me in that role. So I wanted to talk a little bit. One of the questions that I was asked was, what barriers did you face? And when I was preparing this talk, because I do a little bit of preparation, may not seem like it, but I do, I was instantly hit by massive imposter syndrome. Now, I used to suffer from really bad imposter syndrome, and I've done a lot of work to get that under control, and most of the time my little voice is quiet, but it really started shouting at me. And the reason it started shouting at me was it was saying, you haven't faced any barriers, what are you talking about? And then I actually got really quite emotional. And the reason is, and I know that a lot of people who are on the meeting today will identify with this, is that I have. But actually what we do is we just keep plowing through, and those little micro incivilities and microaggressions and little things that are said and done and ways people look at you and they get your name wrong over and over and over again, all of that piles up on you. But because you just keep going, you don't recognize it. It's a bit like with some of the stuff that's gone on around gender. And when people started talking about all the things that women do to make sure they're safe. And I don't know about the other women in the group, but I actually kind of went, oh God, this is so exhausting. But it's just what we do. We don't think about it. It's the way we are. We just do it. It's automatic. It's drilled into us. That is the way that we get through life. So those barriers of, like I say, constantly getting my name wrong. For me, one of the big things in talking about representation is the amount of time I will go into a room of senior leaders in health and care, and there'll be 100 people in the room, and I am the only, obviously, black face. It's just frustrating, it's saddening, and it's exhausting. The fact that when something is said that is obviously discriminatory, and I have to be the person that speaks up, it's exhausting. It's exhausting that I have to sit and have a conversation with myself about, do I really want to say this? Do I really want to stick my head above the parapet? Do I really want to be that person who once again is talking about equality, diversity and inclusion? Will everybody think that the only reason I'm talking about this stuff is because it affects me? And I can assure you that I talk about equality, diversity and inclusion for everybody. I'm able-bodied, talk about it, and disability. I'm straight, I talk about it for LGBT. So it's not about personal gain and benefit, it's because it's important. This stuff is really important. But actually, there's that real awareness for me of, there's a real risk that people go, Steph is the EDI woman. There's also an expectation that I know everything about every ethnicity and every religion and every culture on the face of the earth, and that I can be the expert. And of course I can't. And within this, I'm letting you know that I have huge, huge privilege. I'm light-skinned. English is my first language. I'm a Geordie. You know, how much more privilege can you get? I've had a very good education. I'm middle class. So I use that privilege as best I can to support other people. But if I'm getting that kind of barrier in the way, I'm really aware of the barriers that other people get. So what can organisations do? Well, you know what? We've probably all got policies and procedures coming out of our ears. Policies and procedures are not the way forward. This is about mentoring, and the mentoring that goes both ways. People who have mentors succeed more. People who have coaches succeed more. We need to make sure that we are really going out and not just saying to somebody, to put you like a mentor, saying, I want you to have a mentor because you show talent and it's a good thing for you. Because actually quite often we will say, no, actually it's all right, I don't want to step forward, I don't want to stick my head above the parapet. It's about reaching out to people. It's about allyship. It's about making sure that you're not relying on that person of colour in the room to be the person who calls things out and says, that's not wrong, that's wrong. It's about really making sure that you are living and understanding issues rather than just sitting and waiting for somebody to say something or waiting for something to be pointed out. Go and speak to people, ask people about what their experiences are. I'm not expecting white people to understand what it's like to be black. Why would you? You're not. But actually learn, ask questions, inform yourself, and then use your privilege and use your standing to make sure that it's not just us that are fighting the battles. So I'm off to a conference in a week or two, a Hospice UK conference. Once again, I suspect I will be, if not the only, one of the few black faces in the room, and I'm fairly certain I'll be the only black chief exec there. And I'll put on the big girl knickers, and I know that's probably not politically correct for them to say, but that's what I do. I have to pull them right up there, and I'll go in there and I'll fight once again. But what would be really lovely would be if I had a whole load of people standing alongside me that were saying, look at this room, look at the lack of diversity in this room. What are we going to do about it?